Object Edge is, a mid-sized, privately held company. We're often up against places like Accenture and Deloitte, like huge heavy hitters. And we really pride ourselves in being personable and consultative. Like we get in there and we understand like what the technology problem is, but also what the business problem is and how this is actually going to get solved.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm happy to be here today with Sarah Falcon, Vice President of Marketing at Object Edge. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Good, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and about Object Edge.
Yeah, so Object Edge is a digital consultancy firm. We've been around since the 90s, 1994. So we're looking forward to a 30-year celebration next year.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, we started as a tech firm, really doing early complex digital projects. We're based in the Bay Area. We're in Walnut Creek, so we're sort of in the middle of where it was all happening as these softwares and tools were getting developed. A lot has changed in 30 years and the business has changed too. And we've pivoted from a bunch of different platforms and solutions. And what we do right now is really, especially for B2B companies and also B2C companies with just like complex digital problems, we help them. Like our space is the like ugly, hairy digital problem. So whether it's like getting e-commerce up and running when you have diverse inventories and backend systems, that mid-office, like the tools that your sales teams are using that are clunky because they're like working with too many other tools, cleaning up data, designing digital experiences. Like we like the big complicated digital projects. That's where we live.
You talk about the digital landscape changing in 30 years. We're at a time where it changes in 30 days. So obviously a company like yours has to be incredibly agile and flexible. What verticals do you service?
Yeah, so primarily enterprise B2B manufacturers and distributors. We work in automotive, telco, healthcare, finance as well. We've also done a fair amount with B2C and retailers as well.
Excellent.
So we're kind of broad, yeah.
Excellent. Let's back up step and talk about you. Tell me about Sarah Falcon. How did you end up to be Vice President of Marketing at Object Edge?
Yeah, so it's been a funny evolution. My first job was at a tech startup based in Germany. I was living in Germany at the time. They needed someone who spoke English to head their English language marketing, like very early days. So it was just a really different time in marketing. We were like, you had to hard code emails. You had to test them. Like getting an email out the door was just a nightmare. You had to test it against like different browsers. To get a photo on a website was just like, it was all extremely complicated. But we did fun stuff. It was a startup environment. So we did like social media. It was MySpace and Friendster. We did, fun campaigns, like blog contests. So it was a fun, sort of broad experience in the world of tech and online communications and marketing. Then I moved back to the US. I worked brand side for nonprofits, just a diverse range of experiences. And then in about 7 years ago, I switched over fell into this world of B2B and e-commerce consultancies, which like on a personal note, it was because I was looking for remote work. Like I was like in the early stages of building a family. When I was pregnant with my second kid, I was like, let's figure this out. And so I started, 7 years ago, really focusing on finding work that would be fulfilling and challenging and interesting and also remote. And that's what it's been. And it's, B2B is a huge, complicated beast. So there's a lot to do there, and I got to work with really great people and learn from them. And so I've been in that space, since then.
Excellent. I believe you get an award for being the first person to mention MySpace on a Business Ninjas podcast.
It speaks to my youth, I guess.
There was a point where I had to remember to go there and delete it and clean it up. I think it's a digital wasteland, right?
Yeah.
What makes Object Edge stand out from its competition? What puts you ahead of your competition?
Yeah. So, we're in a funny space where we are playing. Object Edge is, a mid-sized, privately held company. We're often up against places like Accenture and Deloitte, like huge heavy hitters, or just largely outsourced firms, so that they're really playing on like a price advantage. And we really pride ourselves in being personable and consultative. Like, we get in there and we understand like what the technology problem is, but also what the business problem is and how this is actually going to get solved. So, often with more programmatic approaches, you get kind of slotted in to like a formula, because it's very scalable. But we pride ourselves in being sort of nimble and agile and responsive and consultative, and really work with the people whose jobs and whose teams' jobs and whose businesses are on the line to make these changes.
It's very important, right? It's all still humans at the end of the day. And while they may look good on a spreadsheet, they're still people, and they need to be attended to as humans. And being a smaller company sometimes means that you can actually make people feel like they're heard, as opposed to working with a gigantic company that has a cookie cutter approach to the business. Who are your customers? What size businesses are you working with? What industries and size companies
Yeah.
do you invest with?
So it's primarily enterprise businesses. Often they're global, high multi-million billion-dollar companies that either are, evolving it, like have a program for digital transformation already at play and looking to sort of mature and expand it, or make sort of their big first step into, digital commerce, digital experience, digital transformation.
And what are the most common problems and challenges that you're solving for your clients?
Yeah, a lot of them you've probably experienced yourself, which is like, how do we make our site as easy for people to do business with as possible? Like, we work with B2B, so our end users are people who are just trying to get their job done, right? They want to be able to search and find the thing that they're looking for. They want to be able to put an order through quickly and easy, right? They're just trying to get through their workday and not make errors that are going to get them in trouble, just get things done, not be sitting and waiting for like a spinning wheel to do its thing. So part of it is just the technology, so those things are frictionless and smooth as possible. And that for the end customers, your associates who are also working on your systems, just to make their jobs easier. So that's sort of the broad thing. And then there's like technical components of what that means. That might be like living in your commerce. It might be the design of your site, that things aren't intuitively placed, that your search is hard to navigate. It might be your data, like your data might just be a mess, and product information isn't, correctly structured or aligned, or your analytics aren't showing you the actual picture of what's going on in your business.
Excellent.
So,
Hey, making things frictionless for anyone is a huge asset, right?
yeah.
Switch gears for a second. Obviously, COVID has posed obstacles, challenges, and opportunities. Tell me about Object Edge and how it was able to wade through the tide, as it were, and grow in the last couple of years.
Yeah, we were lucky to be a digital consultancy at a point where a lot of businesses were having to digitize things that were not available online. So if you're a B2B company and your sales force is now grounded. And, up until last year, we had a lot of customers who wouldn't take outside meetings, right? They just didn't want the risk of exposure. So there was a lot of selling and, self-service tools that had to get spun up relatively quickly. We also launched like a B2B focused curbside pickup solution. Like you saw, Target did this really quickly and really well. And a few other, Panera did this too, right? But really focused on B2B, like the B2B buyers and the distributors, and leveraging those distribution centers and warehouses to provide like low contact pickup solutions. So there were a lot of opportunities that we could take advantage of, and the business saw growth, frankly. And it was a cultural shift because, we were a company that was primarily headquartered in California, India, and Brazil. And they, there were big development teams that were used to like sitting and having, working through problems together and having lunch together and like going out, for a drink at the end of the day. And it's a big cultural shift to make that change.
Well, but obviously you have been working remotely for how long now?
Yeah, 7 years. So I was ready. I was ready for it.
Well, and it sounds like Object Edge was ready for it, right? You had the agility and flexibility in place to do what needed to be done quickly, which is important.
Yeah, and the thing I'm really proud of the organization for doing is not being reactive into this change. There was a lot of like companies that started requiring like keystroke monitoring and just like really trying to like lock down and make sure that people were, that I don't know, it felt like that companies had a fear of being taken advantage of if people were going remotely. But we found that just by continuing to have high standards and keeping the lines of communication and understanding, like people were getting sick or family, like there's just so much chaos that focusing instead on trust and growth of the business rather than like sort of locking down and control was really, I think, a wise strategigic long-term view.
I don't know that many people thrive in a sort of punitive environment, right? Either you're in the job you're supposed to be in, and the people you work for trust and respect you, or they don't. And keeping tabs on every little specific of what they're doing remotely may not necessarily be the best way to encourage them to be productive. Productivity is certainly definable on the other end of the equation. So if that drops off, what's going on. But keystroke monitoring seems like a little much. I know that hey, everything is recorded now in this day and age. So there's evidence too, right? So tell me a little bit about what role content and content marketing have played in the growth of Object Edge.
Yeah, I mean, content's been huge. It's been, still organic search and inbound is the strongest ROI, biggest percent of pipeline from marketing activities. Serving people the content that they're looking for that's valuable at the right time. Like there's just no better way from a marketing side. You can advertise to as many people as you think will be in market, but the people who sort of raise their hand and are doing the work already, we've just shown that they just have much higher rates of conversion and much faster velocity through the pipeline. So it's been, it's a multi-year project. The site when I started they just launched the site, so there was sort of what do you call it? It's like a PowerPoint presentation on a website. There's some bare bones there, but there was just a lot to do in terms of, technical SEO and then pure content development and writing.
It's more important than ever for your website to be a living and breathing entity, and the fact that you're a smaller company that hones in on that human connection, that it's important for people to know that when they land on your website, because single touches just don't get the job done these days. You got to engage and educate people on your site, and you're speaking my language when you when you talk about content like that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, you know about this, and I mean, our ICP is director level and above. So the other thing that is important to me is, right, you can do all the SEO that you want, but if you get to the site and the VP looks at it and says, like, these guys don't know what they're talking about, like, you lose all credibility. Like, that traffic means nothing. So it's really important to get that mix of, writing for the SEO and then writing to be quickly compelling and interesting and show your credibility.
Well, if you try to separate writing for SEO and writing for, fertile content, that can get a little murky because, driving raw traffic to your website, those numbers might look good on a dashboard, but if they're not people who are engaged the minute they get there, then you're throwing darts in the wind kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm always of the opinion that if you're writing the sort of material that actually does engage and educate the people who are looking for a service like yours, the SEO kind of takes care of itself. I know that's a little cavalier, but it's important not to separate them so broadly because obviously anybody who shows up at your website should be a person who wants to be there and needs your service, right? All right, switch gears entirely. What's something you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally a year from now?
Yeah, I think 2023 is going to be really weird. Like, I would like, I think if we get to the end of this year and we're like, we hit our targets, like we did what we set out to achieve, I think that will be a huge win because I think it's going to be really hard to get there. That is my, I am generally optimistic and I'm very ambitious, but I think that is a realistic.
Are you saying 2023 is going to be weirder than 2021 and 2022?
Yeah, I know.
The bar is high. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And how about personally? What would you like to be celebrating personally a year from now?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I am I'm a parent of three little kids. My husband and I both are lucky to work remotely. And one of the things I'm thinking about this year is doing a digital nomad summer, figuring out somewhere else to be, and figuring out how to pull that off. I live on the East Coast. My company's based in California. I would love to be in Sicily, but we might have to look for something that's a little bit more time zone appropriate. So that's my personal goal.
I guess strong Wi-Fi is the biggest prerequisite of any Airbnb you're looking for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Hey, it's a unique advantage. Most people can't really build any work into vacations, but frankly, when we have a blurred background on a laptop, you can be anywhere and nobody needs to know. So
yeah.
Sarah Falcon, Vice President of Marketing of Object Edge, thank you for spending some time today. It was lovely to get to know about you and your company. Please tell everyone what your URL is, where they can find Object Edge, and what social media channels you're using these days. Yeah,
so we're objectedge.com, and we're on LinkedIn primarily, so you can find us there. We share, new things we're publishing, news, events. We have an upcoming tequila versus mezcal taste off, which everyone is looking forward to. So,
do you ever invite outside vendors to events like that? I know a guy.
We'll take it into consideration. Yeah, exactly. So LinkedIn is where you'll find most of our social activity.
Excellent. Well, hey, I appreciate you spending some time with us today. It's nice to get to know you. I wish you and yours and Object Edge all the best in the strange year to come. I hope your prediction of it being a weirder year than the last two is incorrect, but you know what? Nothing's surprising.
We'll talk in November. We'll see how it's going.
Thanks for being with me.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.